It started out like a regular camping trip. Me and Alex packed the car, drove for about an hour, and found a trail that wasn't too busy. We wanted to get away from everything, just chill for a night or two. We parked, grabbed our stuff, and hiked about 40 minutes in before finding a decent spot to set up. It wasn't perfect, some roots sticking out of the ground, but it was good enough. By the time we got the tent and fire going, it was already dark. We sat by the fire, eating snacks, talking about random stuff, just a normal night in the woods. Around 10 p.m., I got up to grab something from my bag when I heard a sound, a faint crunch, like someone stepping on leaves. "Alex," I said quietly. "What?" He was busy poking the fire. "Did you hear that?" He paused, looked at me, then shook his head. "Hear what?" I stared into the dark woods. "I think footsteps." He laughed. "Dude, it's the woods. Probably a raccoon or something." I nodded, trying to shake it off, but my gut told me something was off. About 20 minutes later, Alex heard it too. A slow, deliberate step, just past the firelight. "Okay, that's not a raccoon," he said, standing up. He grabbed the flashlight and pointed it toward the trees. "Hello? Anyone out there?" "Nothing." "Probably another camper," Alex said, but he didn't sound sure. Another crunch, this time closer. "Yo, we should pack up," I said, grabbing my bag. "Relax," Alex said, trying to sound calm, but I could see his hands were shaking. "Let's just check it out first." He took a few steps toward the trees, shining the flashlight ahead. I stayed by the fire, holding a stick like it was going to do something. That's when we saw him. A man, maybe 20 feet away, standing just outside the light. He wasn't moving, just watching us. His clothes were filthy, his face pale. He looked wrong, like something was missing, but I couldn't tell what. "Hey man," Alex called out, his voice shaking. "You good? You lost?" The man didn't say anything. He just stood there staring. "Do we go?" I whispered. "Yeah," Alex said, slowly stepping back toward me. We didn't take our eyes off the guy as we grabbed our stuff. My hands were trembling so bad I dropped my flashlight. When I bent to pick it up, the man moved. Just one step, but it was enough. "Run," Alex said, his voice barely above a whisper. We took off down the trail, leaving half our gear behind. I didn't look back, but I could hear him. Slow, heavy steps behind us. We reached the car, threw our stuff in, and sped off. I didn't even think about the speed limit until we were miles away. It wasn't until later, when we stopped for gas, that I realized something. The man wasn't chasing us. He wasn't trying to hide. He just wanted us to know he was there. It was late October, and the air smelled like damp leaves and wood smoke. I was camping alone, deep in the forest, something I'd done countless times before. I liked the solitude, the quiet. But this time, something felt different. The first night was uneventful, just the usual sounds of the woods, crickets, the occasional hoot of an owl. I fell asleep easily, wrapped in my sleeping bag inside the small tent. But around 3 a.m., I woke up to a strange noise. It was a faint tapping sound, rhythmic, slow. It wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. It sounded like someone tapping on a tree. I stayed still, listening, my pulse quickening. Maybe it was a woodpecker. That made sense, right? But at 3 a.m., in the pitch dark, I told myself it was nothing, rolled over, tried to sleep, but the sound didn't stop. It got louder, closer. The next morning, I searched the area around my campsite. Nothing seemed out of place. I even checked the trees for signs of a woodpecker. Nothing. No holes, no marks. Still, I shrugged it off. The mind plays tricks in the dark. The second night, the tapping started again. This time, It was louder, closer. It wasn't a woodpecker. I was sure of it now. It sounded like knuckles, rapping against wood. I unzipped the tent just enough to peek outside, flashlight in hand. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing nothing, just trees and shadows. But then, I noticed something. On the tree closest to my tent, there was a mark, a deep, jagged scratch, like someone had dragged a knife across the bark. My stomach tightened. That hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. I didn't sleep much that night. By the third day, I was jumpy. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves put me on edge. I decided to pack up and leave first thing in the morning. But that night, things got worse. The tapping started again, just as it had before. But this time, there was something else. A voice. Low, guttural, almost a whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it sent a chill down my spine. I grabbed my flashlight and threw open the tent flap, heart pounding. The light swept across the campsite, and that's when I saw them. Two figures, standing at the edge of the trees. They weren't moving, just standing there side by side, staring at me. My flashlight beam caught one of their faces, a man, older, with a gaunt, hollow look. His eyes reflected the light, almost like an animal's. The other figure was harder to make out, but I could see the outline of someone shorter, wearing a hood. Neither of them said a word. I froze. My mind screamed at me to run, but my body wouldn't move. They didn't come closer. They just stood there, watching me. Then, one of them, the older man, raised a hand and pointed in my direction. The motion was slow, deliberate, like a warning. I don't remember grabbing my bag or starting the car. The next thing I knew, I was speeding down the dirt road, my hands shaking on the wheel. I didn't stop until I was miles away, back on the highway. I was hiking down off a mesa alone. It was night, and something felt off. I kept getting this strange feeling, like I was being watched. You know that feeling? The one that crawls down your spine? Yeah, that one. I had my headlamp on, but I kept it in red mode. The batteries were almost dead, and red light helps preserve night vision. Not to mention, it was just easier since the batteries were running out. But something was off. I could feel eyes on me. I looked around, but no one was there. The feeling came again, the third or fourth time now. Someone was watching me. I swear, something was out there. I stopped in my tracks, heart racing. I thought, nope, not tonight. I turned around. I flicked the headlamp to spot mode, bright, full white light. And then, I saw it. A shape, a shadow. It moved fast, real low, behind some bushes, about 25 yards away. It was smooth, silent, too fast, too calculated. I stood there for what felt like forever, but it was probably only a minute. My mind raced. I weighed my options. What do I do? Should I run? Should I keep going? But I knew I didn't have much of a choice. So, I started walking. But now, I made noise. I wanted to make myself bigger, louder. I spread my arms out, the rain jacket rustling with each move. I needed to look dangerous, or at least like I wasn't easy prey. And then, the worst part happened. I had to switch back to red light mode. The white light drained the battery too fast, and I knew I didn't have enough juice to make it back. So, I turned the headlamp back to red. And I kept going. But every time I turned around, just a quick glance, a flash of the headlamp, I saw something. Eyes. Green. Reflecting in the dark. Every time, about 25 yards behind me, low to the ground. Always low. Too low for deer. or anything I knew. They weren't just watching me, they were following me. I saw those eyes, I don't know, 10 times, more, always at the edge of the light, always so quiet, always just there. I swear, they weren't normal eyes, not human, not animal, but they had to be. They were low to the ground, like a deer. But deer don't move like this, not this silently, not this persistently. My heart raced. I couldn't shake it. I called my friend. I don't know why. Maybe to make sure someone knew where I was, just in case. I told him, half joking, if I'm not back in an hour, here's where you can find my body. It was a 5-mile hike. My light flickered, dying slowly. I tried to keep calm, but that feeling of being stalked, it never left. The eyes were still there, just watching. By the time I left the mesa, my light was completely gone. I kept walking through fields, relying only on the moon. No light at all now. The shadows felt deeper without the red glow. The darkness pressed in. I couldn't see what was out there, but I knew something was watching me. I think it stopped once I left the mesa. At least, I think it did. I can't say for sure. Maybe it was just waiting. Maybe it was just curious. But whatever it was, I could feel it. And it's a feeling I'll never forget. I'm pretty sure it was a mountain lion. It's hunting territory. Maybe it just wanted to know what I was doing there. But knowing something is following you, watching you like that, it was terrifying. Even if it was just curious, I don't ever want to feel that again. I used to work in national parks. I did some search and rescue too as a volunteer. But there are 2 things I'll never forget. The first is scary, but the second, it's tragic. This happened while I was on a multi-day off-road camping trip, all alone in the wilderness. Technically, I wasn't working. I had set out to enjoy the quiet of the woods, maybe have a little wine, relax. But things didn't go as planned. I settled into my SUV for the night, feeling a little tipsy. The warmth from the wine mixed with the cool night air, and soon I was drifting off to sleep. But then, I woke up. Far off in the distance, I could hear something. It wasn't screaming. It wasn't singing either. It was yelling, but strange. It sounded like chanting. I lay there for a while, frozen. I didn't know what to make of it. The woods were still, too still. My mind raced. Was I just imagining it? Or was someone out there? I grabbed my army knife just in case. But eventually, I fell back asleep, heart pounding in my chest. But I woke again. This time, it was different. Someone was knocking on the glass of my vehicle. Knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks. You know, the kind that only a person makes. I jumped out of bed trying to see who it was. In the dark, I saw a figure, a person. They were standing outside, staring in. I felt this deep chill. I screamed, a guttural sound, my voice raw with fear. And that's when they ran. My head was spinning. I couldn't believe it. I was hours away from the nearest town. There's no way anyone could have just driven up without me hearing it. The air was too still, too quiet. I felt trapped. I grabbed my keys, turned on the engine, and sat there, just watching. I stayed alert, my eyes darting to every shadow, every movement. But nothing happened. Nothing at all. The hours dragged on. When morning finally came, I couldn't stay there. I packed up quickly and drove off, looking for another spot to set up camp. It was a long, nerve-wracking day. I didn't get much sleep that night, and I never, ever wanted to go back to that spot again.